streaming, and then we can start. Perfect. Okay. All right, so we'll start the meeting with our election of officers, the election of the chair and the vice chair. Do I have any volunteers or nominations for the chair of the Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee? Oh, hi, Susan.
I wanted to nominate Amy.
Okay.
Chair.
Okay, and do we have a seconder for that nomination? Councilor Tozo, I see you. Okay, thank you very much. So now I will call the vote on Amy as chair of MAC. All in favor? Okay, and that carries. Thank you very much, everyone. So now we will move on to an election for the vice chair of the committee. Are there any volunteers or nominees or nominations for the vice chair?
Sorry, can I ask the question? Unfortunately, I didn't actually have an opportunity to talk to this person in advance, so I know I'm putting them on the spot. But I would like to nominate Susan. I'm not sure if you would be open to that, Susan, and don't feel like you have to say yes, but you have lots of great experience on the committee, and I think it'd be great to see you as vice chair.
Sure, that's fine. I'll accept that. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, thank you, Susan, and thank you, Amy. Do we have a seconder for that nomination of Susan as vice chair? I see you, Dinah. Perfect. Okay, and I will call the vote. All in favor of Susan Mockler as vice chair? Beautiful. Okay, and that carries. Thank you, everyone. So I will turn the floor over now to Amy to get the meeting started.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to our first meeting of 2024. So the first thing is our meeting is now called to order at 1:12 p.m. Our first item on the agenda, technically number 3, is the approval of the agenda. So if you have any amendments, suggestions, reordering, you're welcome to suggest them. Otherwise, I would need a first and a seconder. We go through this. So if there are no amendments and edit. Don't see any. So I just need a first approver of the agenda. And again, you can do that by raising your hand, or I see a hand by Megan and a seconder, Mercedes. And then all in favor of this agenda. I think that is everybody. It is hard for me to pay attention to the videos. Yeah. Okay, and then our next item on the agenda is confirmation of our minutes from the November 2nd, 2023 meeting. So it's basically, as you see on the agenda, there is a statement that the minutes of the Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be approved. So if there are no edits or amendments from that, I will also need a first and a seconder for that. So a first for that, I see Dinah, and a second, I see Susan. And all in favor? Perfect. I think I see everyone's hands. Excellent. So the 5th item is disclosure of a pecuniary interest. I'm not sure if we've gone into what that actually means. I have never seen it in all of my years. Do we have to explain that at this point in time, or will that go in the orientation?
We'll be covering that in the orientation, and none of this material would have a pecuniary interest.
Okay, perfect. So no disclosure of pecuniary interest. We also have no delegations for this meeting. So we will move on to our very first briefing of Derek, who is going to present the committee orientation report.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amy, and good afternoon again, everybody. I do have a PowerPoint presentation I'll use to help guide this, but the purpose of my little presentation today is particularly for our new members, but also a reminder for some of our existing members of basically how the committee works and our procedures. So I will go through this and then we'll have time at the end for questions. So without further ado, we will get started. And we're going to generally cover 4 topics today. We'll talk about the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. We'll talk about the Code of Conduct and conflicts of interest. Biggest part, we'll talk about committee meetings and the process and how they work. And finally, but perhaps most importantly, we'll talk about project teams, which is where you will be doing the most of your work and have the biggest impact on accessibility in the city. So the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, also known as MFIPA, it governs how the city uses, discloses, and disposes of records. So what is a record? A record is any piece of information related to city business. So this is things like the minutes to this meeting, the official agenda, and any emails sent about committee business. So it's important this legislation balances the need of protecting people's privacy, such as volunteers, such as yourself, as well as the need for openness and transparency in everything the government does. What's important to note is that any work you create for the city, and that would primarily be emails, is subject to disclosure under MFIPA. So if a person applied to want to find out more, say, about the accessibility work on a particular park, you may be asked to disclose any records you have about that. In practicality, though, MFIPA requests, I've never seen one relate to the work of this committee, but it's just important to note that anything you do put in writing via email is considered a record and may need to be disclosed. So just use your discretion there. Moving into the Code of Conduct, the provincial legislation basically requires all municipalities to have a code of conduct for its council members and members of boards, such as the Accessibility Advisory Committee. This code of conduct establishes the ethical standards of behavior for committee members. This isn't really complicated. Basically, as a committee member, your job is to act in good faith and uphold the purposes of the city, obey the law, and treat members of the public and staff with respect. We also have a respect in the workplace policy, and it also covers areas like perceived and real or actual and perceived conflicts of interest. To summarize what the Code of Conduct is, it's basically like the thing we all learned is everything I ever needed to know I learned in kindergarten. Treat other people with respect, and you are pretty much set. So what we will move into, though, is conflict of interest, which is always an area people have questions about. It's important that you avoid any conflict of interest that may arise in your work as a committee member. And it's important to note that only you as an individual can determine if you have a conflict of interest. So how do you do this? Good news is there's a series of questions you can ask yourself. I think the biggest thing I'll point out is asking yourself if you're in any way personally or professionally involved with the matter, and if your involvement in that way would affect your ability to address a matter without bias. So the key thing is part of your work here on the Accessibility Advisory Committee is, I found out from the introductions, a lot of you are very passionate and have personal connections to the world of accessibility, but it's important to note that your role here is to also advocate for the public interest in its totality of accessibility. So but to Amy's point, I don't think I've ever seen anybody have to declare a pecuniary interest at this committee because a lot of what you're doing is providing feedback and information. So there's very little cases where you're going to be perceived as having the ability to not be biased. But if you do have questions about the nature of things, you can ask myself or Christine. We just cannot tell you whether or not you have an actual conflict of interest. And as we've gone through on the agenda, there's a portion where you can declare your conflict of interest. And basically what that means is you're being transparent in that you do have that conflict. You're still allowed to participate in the meeting and discussions. You just are not allowed to participate in any votes on that matter. So again, this is a very seldom occurring thing that may happen to you, but you are at least now prepared. Before we get into going through the agenda, I'll quickly talk about meeting decorum. I've already hit on the first point, which is it's important to arrive with an open mind and be willing to hear other perspectives. We all benefit when we have a variety of perspectives and everybody feels comfortable to share those perspectives in a respectful way. If you're ever unsure about a procedure or how things work, don't be afraid to ask your committee clerk or ask the chair, Amy, for clarity. They're both very excellent and run great meetings. Simple way, if you do want to speak, is to raise your hand, whether real or virtual in the meeting, and Amy will call upon you when when your time is available to speak. And also, as the chair, Amy is responsible for the overall decorum of the meeting, and it is her job to make rulings on any points of order or any questions here. So Amy is our fearless leader in that regard. So now we'll go through the agenda sort of step by step. We've gone through some of these things already, so I know also some of the members have experience on other boards, but approval of the agenda is a chance for you to maybe change the order of business, or if you have something you'd like to bring up under other business, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides, what you can do there. And this requires a vote. And as we've all figured out now, voting you can either do by raising your physical hand like this, or using the raise hand function in Zoom. You can also indicate your vote orally if that is required as well. The minutes, these are the official records of the meeting, and confirmation gives you a chance to correct any errors or omissions. It's not a transcript, it's just a summary of the discussion. And once the minutes are confirmed, which will be done at sort of the next meeting of MAC, they are then posted to the city website for transparency. And if you do have any questions about minutes, do reach out to Christine and she can help facilitate any corrections and then take care of them officially at the meeting. A delegation, this is where members of the public are given a chance to address the committee. They get 5 minutes to speak, followed by a Q&A period where committee members are allowed to ask a maximum of 2 questions. Delegations can be about something on the agenda, or they can be about a topic that's related to accessibility but not on the agenda. A delegation we have frequently is from the Kingston Area Taxi Commission, so you'll be seeing Joseph Dowser join us a few times throughout the year. Briefings, this is what we're doing now. This is a chance for staff like myself to present to the committee. It's usually a 10-minute time maximum. I'm going to might go a little long today, but I think the orientation is important. You then get a chance for unlimited questions and answers afterwards. So these are usually done on topics of more in-depth importance where staff are really seeking feedback from the committee, but maybe also gives committee a chance to clarify matters. The business area of the agenda is where we deal with reports, and this is the majority of the business that will be coming to the committee. So as part of your agenda, you'll receive a report that will sort of prepare you for the discussion on the topic. The process that's followed is staff will provide a brief introduction, usually 2 to 3 minutes, to cover the high areas of the report. Committee members are then given a chance to ask questions and provide comments. After that is done, if we have any public in attendance at the meeting, public members are given a chance to ask questions and provide comments as well to city staff. It doesn't happen often at MAC meetings, but that is part of our procedures. And most of the reports you'll be dealing with are going to be for information. So staff are looking to share what they've done with the committee as well as planned work, and then get feedback on that work. Although you will see that today you do have a report that requests the approval of the committee. And what will happen there is if the committee approves that report, it will go to the next meeting of city council for approval, and that will basically give direction to staff to do something. In this case, it'll be adopting a new policy. So when it comes to voting, we've covered this a bit as well, just through practice already. There are some reports that will require a motion and a vote. So Amy will ask for a mover and a seconder. As a mover and a seconder, you don't have any. This doesn't mean you necessarily support anything or any type of obligation. It's just to get things and debate going on things. So once that has happened, a mover and a seconder is obtained, there can be further discussion on the item, or if there's no more discussion, Amy will ask for a vote. And this is, again, we ask people to raise their hand either physically or virtually in Zoom. And it's important to note, you cannot abstain from voting. Our procedural rules state if you do not indicate your vote is counted as a no. So important to know, because of virtual meetings, there's often a delay. So we'll give people a few seconds to get their vote and to make things count. So lastly, fourth of 5 on the agenda topic is our motion. So these are things that are introduced by committee members, asking council to direct staff to usually provide more information to the committee. We often can deal with this through changes to the work plan. If you do have something you would perhaps like to see the committee address or have staff address, I highly recommend you reach out to Christine first, and we can usually deal with things in a more informal manner. But it's important to note that no committee has any authority over city departments or the authority to direct staff to spend budget. That responsibility lies solely with City Council. And lastly, in the agenda, we have 2 other areas of importance, other business. So this is the chance where committee members can make a brief statement on a topic of interest to the committee. It's not an area for substantive debate, but perhaps there's an event coming up that might be of interest to the community. So that's a chance for you to share that with the committee. This should be added under the approval of agenda section. So you would just let Amy know that I want to make a brief statement about this, and then we can cover when it comes to other business. Lastly, correspondence. This is where any letters or emails that come to the committee about basically accessibility in the city are put on the agenda to be shared and just to make committee members aware. So there's not a discussion or debate here, but they can be referenced if it relates to an item of business like a report. So this is probably the most important part of your work. I'm just going to pause to have a sip of water. Project teams. So outside of the committee meetings, this is where MAC members work directly with city staff on projects of varying nature. So sometimes it can be more of a built environment aspect, like the building or upgrading of a city park or renovations to a city facility. It can also be related to policies as well. For example, we did send out a request earlier about the active transportation project team. So this is where you work directly with city staff, and often we try and partner people. So there's at least 2 members, particularly with new members. We'll try and partner you with an experienced committee member so you can learn and have a resource there with you. It's important to note projects can vary in terms of time commitment. Some might be 1 or 2 meetings over a couple of months and a rather quick project. Others might be more long-term, like a park project may take 1 to 2 years from completion, and you may only have 3 to 4 meetings during that time. It's also very important to note that staff are obligated to consult with members of the project team in the manner that best suits them. So this can be things like virtual meetings, email exchanges, site meetings. They're also required to provide any information to you in a form that allows you to participate. So I would say our staff are very well trained in that and understand the need to meet people and get their feedback in the best way possible. But if you do have any issues, I'd ask you please reach out to me and I will try and help make things better for you. So my last couple slides here, I'm going to talk about the 2 standing project teams we have. We have one for site plan review. This is led by, very ably also, I'll say, by Susan. She's an excellent leader on this. It's part of the city's obligation under the Planning Act to review site plans for new buildings in terms of accessibility. So we provide feedback on areas of the built environment of the facility, often related to parking and sort of access between the building and its outside environment. So pathways, sidewalks, those type of things. This committee can have a fair bit of a time commitment to it, of about 1 to 2 hours per week during the peak time, which is spring to early fall. But members are going to be given training on this. So Susan is developing a good training program, and you'll also have a chance to be trained by city planning staff. It's important to note that this is a great project team to be on to have an actual tangible impact. You are there to provide sort of the background check and the lived experience thing to cover areas that may have been missed. So with project teams, you don't have any sort of, I'll say, responsibility or sign off. So don't feel as if you are being asked to do things outside of your comfort zone. You are there to provide your experience both through lived and other practical means, but our staff are trained to meet all legal obligations. That is not upon you. And last, we have the Awareness and Education Project team, which works closely with myself and Christine. This group is responsible for selecting the winners of or recipients, I'll say, of the Celebrating Accessibility Awards. They also help to plan the National Accessibility Week education campaign. And this typically involves 3 to 4 meetings per year, typically over Zoom, as well as emails. And I think that wraps up my briefing. I know I was covering a lot of material, but at this point, Amy, I'm happy to take any questions or provide any more information if that's required.
Thanks so much, Derek. Does anybody have any questions for Derek on anything he presented? I am not seeing any. Thank you, Derek.
You're very welcome. I'll take that as that was a good overview, but anytime you have questions, do reach out to myself or Christine.
All right, so our next kind of few items on the agenda are business items. So we have a few of them, so we basically will go in order. So our first business item is the accessible consultation process policy. And then there is a report that is attached to that that you would have got in your agenda as well. I'm just not sure who is speaking on that.
That would be me, Amy.
Okay, great.
It's going to be a lot of
you.
me talking today. So thank you very much. It's a rather dry sounding topic, but I'll give a quick overview. This project's been worked on for about the last year, and what this policy sets out is how staff, City of Kingston staff, engage specifically with MAC members on those project teams that I described earlier, as well as how the city receives feedback from the public and persons with disabilities related to certain city services and facilities. Certain cities services and facilities. So part of the policy relates to our legal obligations under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, as well as the accessibility standard regulations under that. So that's sort of the dry legalistic part. But the policy also covers how the city will work above and beyond those minimum legal requirements in order to ensure that our city facilities, services, and programs are as accessible as possible to Kingston residents and visitors, with the understanding that it's valuable to receive feedback from the community in general, as well as the accessibility community on those areas. The key thing with the policy is it helps provide clarity as well as the roles and responsibilities people are supposed to play as we receive this feedback. It's been reviewed throughout 2023 by city staff in a variety of areas, as well as a couple of MAC project team members assisted as well. Kim and Kim and Lucy, who are no longer on the committee, did assist me in creating the policy. And what happens here today is I'm happy to answer any questions or take any feedback about the policy, and assuming it is approved by the committee, it will go to the February 6th City Council meeting for debate and approval, and then we will be using that policy moving forward. So Amy, I'm happy to answer any questions or take any feedback.
Perfect, thanks so much. Hopefully everybody has had a chance to review it in advance. Is there any questions from the committee for Derek on this policy? Penny, I will go with you first.
I think you're on mute, Penny.
Penny, sorry, did you want to go ahead? I think you're on mute though. Did you have any questions for Derek on this or comments? Sorry, Penny, I think you're still on mute. I don't think I can unmute. If you can unmute, please.
Okay, sorry, I've my computer keeps jumping around. So I'm trying to unmute and it would jump around. My question, Derek, is for I didn't see when I was reading the policy, and I could have missed it, but the city should have something that says that we will not create any new barriers. That could be self, where you'd think you wouldn't, but if you don't, when you're doing something new, if you don't keep in mind, did we create a barrier, then you may miss it. So just a statement that no new barriers will be created.
Excellent. Thank you, Penny, for that comment. And I think that's something we can take into consideration also with another policy we're working on, which is related to all of our accessibility standards for any area throughout the city. So I will make that note and comment. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Penny. And next I see Megan.
Hi, my question's a little bit on in terms of like format and whatnot. I'm not sure if this is kind of our final version of it or not, but I noticed that the version that we had attached in our agenda was a bit hard to figure out which page is which because the page numbers were actually on top of each other. Just little things like that I was curious about if that's something that's up for being looked at, or if that's just like it's a draft copy, so that's what we're at. Thanks.
No, that's a great point, and thank you for that, Megan. I think that was just a typographical issue, so we'll make sure to clarify that before the final policy is instituted. But thank you for catching that.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments, questions for Derek? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So this is coming up with a recommendation. So recommendation that MAC will basically recommend to council that the accessible consultation process policy be approved. And so I will need a mover for this. Councillor Tozo, and a seconder. Renee, thank you. And then all in favor? That is everyone. Thank you so much. And so our next business item is the Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee work plan, which I imagine is also Derek. I believe that's going to speak on that.
Yes, no problem. I'll be back for a third and final time. So again, thank you, everybody. The work plan sets out the work that the committee will be undertaking throughout 2024. So this includes presentations and updates from staff in key areas of accessibility, some of which were outlined in the accessible consultation process policy. So, for example, every year we have the city's facilities management and construction services group present, and they share information on work achieved in the past year, as well as work upcoming in the previous year on city facilities. We also have outside agencies like the Kingston Area Taxi Commission present as well. Yes, and it also includes other areas outside of the policy that perhaps have been identified by staff or the committee as areas of interest. So, for example, there will be presentations from the city's equity, diversity, and inclusion manager and that department, as well as later in the year, it will be newly formed in March of this year, the city's community development and well-being group, which has a particular focus on age-friendly cities, which has a natural tie-in, I believe, with accessibility. So that's how that works. It also includes work that's done by the city's accessibility office, so National Accessibility Week education campaigns, the Celebrating Accessibility Awards, and the city also participates in Disabilities Mentoring Day as well. So those are noted in the work plan. Another area you'll notice, and you'll have your first report on this at the March meeting, is the quarterly accessibility office reports. Again, this is a chance for city staff to share, and that would be myself, information on what the accessibility office is doing and receive feedback. We also share statistics related to our customer service feedback and accessibility. So we share with you what we're receiving inquiries on, as well as some contextual information about trends. And we can use this to help inform work of the committee and maybe identify areas of need for accessibility in the city of Kingston. And I think the last thing I will note on this is you are being asked to approve the plan today. However, it is adjustable throughout the year, so don't feel beholden to this. And with that, I'm happy to accept any feedback or comments on the work plan.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Does anyone have any questions for Derek on this? I see your hand is raised, Penny, but I'm not sure if that was left over from before.
Yes, Derek, is there anything in our plan, or where would we see the emergency preparedness for disabled people in the city of Kingston?
And through you, Amy, that's a great question, Penny. That is not included on this, but I know it is an area that has been raised through some public comments I've received. So I can certainly reach out to our emergency preparedness coordinator and see if there's a chance for them to come and present. I'm assuming that would be something amenable to the committee.
I just think that because I've seen some other cities and I've read some of the things that other cities have done. So I have never seen anything for the city of Kingston. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Excellent. Thank you, Penny. That's honestly not something I would have thought of. So proving how well the committee works here and bringing up things that staff may not think of. So much appreciated.
Great. Thanks, Penny. Does anyone else have any questions, comments on our work plan as it stands? And again, as Derek said, it is changeable kind of as we go if there's ones that we add. But at this point in time, then I'm not seeing any comments. We do have that recommendation that MAC recommends to council, that council approve our committee work plan as attached. Can I get a mover for that, please? I see Dinah and a seconder. Amanda, thank you. And all in favor of that? I see everyone. Perfect. Thank you. Moving on to our business item C is a report for the committee orientation. This one is for information only, so there is no recommendation with it. Derek, are you speaking on this?
I think with this one, Amy, I had covered all the material in the briefing, so we've covered that, so I think we can move on unless there's other questions.
Not seeing any. That's perfect. So our D is appointments to project teams. And so there are 2, 4, 5 different project teams. We do need a mover and a seconder, but typically we would appoint project team members and then do it all as a whole at the end. So that's the format that I will go with. So the very first one is the awareness and education project team that Derek covered. So typically we have 5 appointments. Again, I think we're happy to have more than that if there's more than 5, but at this point in time, we like to see at least 5 people. So again, all I will take is hands up for volunteers who would like to be on that. So I'm seeing Renee, I'm seeing Regan, I'm seeing Dinah, Mercedes, Megan. Just to confirm, we can have more than 5. I think we have previously.
Yep, we certainly can.
So I see Penny and Andrea as well. Renee, I think I already got you, I believe. Yeah, Caitlin, is Renee on your list?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. So far on my list is Mercedes, Renee, Regan, Dinah, Megan. And I will note through you, Madam Chair, that Penny also has her hand raised.
Sorry, which one is this one for again?
This is just the awareness and education project team.
Okay, I realize I've voted myself in too soon. I was looking for the site plan at AT. Can I remove my?
Yes, for sure.
Thank you.
And so Andrea and Mercedes, though, are on that list for awareness and education. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So the next one up is the surface lot lighting upgrades. As you'll see in the agenda, there is usually kind of a 1-pager or 2-pager that does go over what that project might entail. And so this one, they're looking for 2 appointments. So I'd be looking for 2 volunteers for this one. I understand there's nobody on this one at this point in time. Renee, and is this an urgent one? Sorry, I was just gonna do it.
I think I see Andrea's hand up as well, I
Oh.
believe.
Okay, perfect. So Andrea and Renee for that one. Sorry, I lost my place.
I want to raise my hand, but only to ask a question. Can
Yeah,
you
go
you
ahead.
can be on multiple teams, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah. So some
Okay.
of the projects, again, will vary definitely in terms of timing. So some you might only have 1 meeting, some you might have a couple. So yes, you can definitely be on multiple
Okay.
teams. Yeah, or
Awesome.
multiple projects,
All
sorry.
And-
Sounds good. Thank you.
Just to apprise everybody, there's going to be a significant number of project teams at the next meeting, so you will definitely have a chance to serve on some, as we'll be replacing ones for outgoing members.
Yes, because there already are multiple project teams on the go. So again, just to reiterate what Derek said, as those people are now off the committee, sometimes if it needs 2 reps, we might actually only need 1 to kind of backfill those positions. Okay, so our third one is the site plan review project team, and they are looking for 2 appointments. And Megan, yes.
Sorry,
Yes,
through you,
sorry,
Madam
sorry.
Chair, I did just want to edit, so I made an error on that. We're actually looking for 4 appointments for this one.
Okay. And does that already count Susan? Is Susan? part
No,
of
I
that?
believe we're looking for 4 additional.
Yeah, so right now it's myself and Andrea Fitzgerald, who's not at the meeting today. So, yep, the more the merrier. So we're very excited to welcome people.
So I see Amanda for that one, as well as Megan. And I see Renee's hand as well.
Perfect. That gives us a good amount, factoring in Susan and Andrea as Andrea Fitzgerald. We have 2 Andreas now, so I'll have to distinguish.
Okay, and then the 4th one on our list is the Isabel Turner Library. They're going to be undergoing a renovation project. Are there any volunteers for that one? Aldo, I see your hand. And Andrea, I see your hand for that one. Perfect. And then our final project team is the Active Transportation Project Team. And I see Megan's hand. If I have multiple volunteers, I don't actually know what, because we're looking for just 2 for that one. Is that correct?
So, Amy, this one's a bit tricky in that we did email out earlier because they needed
okay.
people appointed quickly. So we had added Megan Quinn already and Dorothy and Brown. So that team is actually full. So my apologies, Amanda. Good news is you'll get lots of chance for other active transportation ones. So we're just confirming Megan and Dorothy Ann with this one.
Okay, perfect.
This is not usually a problem we have of too many volunteers. So.
Okay, thanks everybody for volunteering. And again, there will always be opportunities to volunteer for other projects as we go forward. So with that, with these 5 project teams, I'm not going to repeat everybody's names, but basically move to, or I will need a mover and a seconder to kind of approve all of these committee members. So a mover, I see Dinah, and a second, I see Mercedes. And then all in favor? Perfect, thank you. And so skipping through the agenda, next few parts will be quick. Motions, we don't have any. Notices of motion, we don't have any. Other business, we don't have any. We do have some correspondence that was part of the package that we got, but as a reminder, correspondence comes in, you can review it, but there is no debate or discussion as part of it. It's just kind of an item for you to review and read. And our final, I guess not final, second last is the date of our next meeting, which has been scheduled for March 7th at 1:00 p.m. And then with that, we will adjourn, but I do need a mover and a seconder, I believe, for adjournment. I see Councillor Tozo and Amanda. I guess all in favor for adjournment of our very first January meeting. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and look forward to seeing you next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. All
Thanks, everyone.
right, take care.